Hey there, solo and co-op gamers. This is Mike with a little bit of a different episode. Not a playthrough, not a complete game review, but instead I wanted to talk about my experience at PAX Unplugged this past weekend. This was the first convention I've been to since joining the YouTube channel, and actually it's the first big board game convention I've ever been to. I got the chance to meet a lot of great people, play some amazing games, co-op and competitive. But for this video, I'm going to focus on 6 upcoming co-op and solo games that I got to do demos of, not just interview someone about or see in action. Like with most of my videos, these will be really quick takes, a minute or less for each game. If you want to hear more details, check out our podcast coverage of the convention coming this Sunday. The first game I'm going to talk about is Mental Blocks, available now in some online retailers and published by Pandasaurus. Mental Blocks is a limited information cooperative game where players work together to create a set of shapes using these differently colored blocks. The cool twist on this is that each player can only see the shape they need to build from one angle, so they can't see depth sometimes or how big things are or what goes where. I got to play a demo of this with Liz from Beyond Solitaire and Jason from Every Night is Game Night, and I liked it a lot based on that one play. It's a really nice puzzle to figure out how to communicate, and to kind of add to the fun and the goofiness, you have this little rule card that says you can touch certain things or can't touch others or limits how much you can say. I think some people might see it as more of an activity than a game, like something you might do at a team building conference, but for me I think it's a lot of fun and I can't wait to pick it up to play with my wife and my family. The next game I got to play is the second edition of Atlantis Rising from Elf Creek Game. And the first edition of this is one of Colin's favorite cooperative games. He's talked about it many times in the past, and I never had a chance to play the first edition. I got to interview one of the designers, play most of a demo game, and I gotta say I am super impressed with the production values for this game. I saw how they changed things from first edition, and everything seems like a massive improvement. The basic idea here is that you're on Atlantis and it's sinking, and you're doing worker placement, cooperative worker placement, and done really well to try to build this warp gate that'll get your people all to safety. You can't save the island, but you can save yourselves. The core mechanic is placing workers on these board spaces and then rolling dice to try to get resources, which you can then use to build the components of the warp gate and gain bonuses for yourselves. But every turn the island is sinking, and if your worker is on a space that sinks, they have to swim back to the island and their action is wasted, so you have some nice tension there. I thought the overall design was great. I thought the game was very tense with the dice rolling. I think the cooperation is awesome. You have these powers that can help each other out, so I can defend your workers or help your workers who have better odds on their dice. There's also a lot of variety in which heroes you use and which items you get. My only concern, and I hope to get a copy of the game so I can play more and see about this, is that since you roll dice for your actions, you can potentially waste an entire action if you roll poorly. There is mitigation, but it's kind of expensive, and you could waste your entire turn, theoretically, if you really roll terribly. So I'm not sure yet if that's going to frustrate me or might frustrate other gamers, but overall I'm really excited about this one, especially with Colin's recommendation, and I definitely want to give it a try soon. And Atlantis Rising 2nd Edition should be available in online stores in January. They were supposed to have some copies at the con, but sadly they didn't get delivered in time. Another game I got to play is the Everrain from Runelords Games, which was kickstarted all the way back in November of 2018, but is being finished up and fine-tuned. And they had pretty much all the miniatures done, and they looked amazing. The theme of this game, which totally blows me away, is that basically Cthulhu and all the Elder Ones, yes, another Cthulhu game, all those guys have come to this world and have flooded it in coming out. So you are pirates in kind of a Waterworld situation, trying to survive and figure out how to stop these great old ones as the entire world floods around you. The miniatures are awesome. The gameplay of turning your ship around and exploring islands is fun. I mean, I just love pirate games, going back to Pirates on the PC and Sega Genesis. You explore islands, have these cool adventures with either or choices, like this huge deck of encounter cards, and you'll have duplicate cards, but with different results. You'll never know what's going to happen, even on repeated plays. And I was a little bit worried about the cooperation, because Peter had played this at a previous con and said you couldn't necessarily help each other that much, but I didn't feel that way at all in my playtest. At one point, this one player had all these cultists on her deck, and we surrounded her with our cannons and just shot the cultists right off her bow. Yes, we destroyed her ship a little bit, but we got the bad guys. So the Everrain should be available for purchase sometime in 2020, and hopefully we'll get to do some coverage of it then. Continuing to look at these games chronologically, the next one I got to play is Divinity Original Sin, the board game, which is on Kickstarter right now until December 20th. Divinity is a collaboration between Larian Studios, who does the PC role-playing games that it's based on, and Linvander Studios. It's a card-based adventure game where you create a unique character build. You can basically take whatever skills you want, and you adventure in sort of a choose-your-own-adventure-ish, time stories-ish mishmash of adventure mechanics. For whichever location you're at, you'll lay down a bunch of cards in this kind of spoke of a clock-looking system, and you can go to individual cards, either going together to help each other out, or splitting up to see what's there, discover things, have surprises, get attacked. They also have this Chronicle system that's sort of a legacy without being legacy, where as you make choices, you check off these boxes, and those can drastically change what happens. In this demo scenario we played, if we returned to the town earlier, it would have been totally fine, we would have saved it, but because we stayed out too long and made other choices, we came back and the town was half burned down, and people were dead that we would have talked to. Combat was also pretty cool with resource management, spending these action points and cooling down your different abilities, and you can combo, like one guy can knock somebody down to lower their armor and let somebody else come in and clean them up. So overall, I really liked it. I'm not sure it's on Tainted Grail level, but it's definitely pretty exciting and really quick to play and really smooth. The combats were often only like 10 or 15 minutes total. I do have some concerns about balance, and also, at least when I played, there wasn't a real tanking mechanic, so sometimes one hero could get ganged up on and taken out of a fight early. You come back at the end of the fight, but that can still be frustrating for a player. But overall, I'm excited to play this one more. Make choices, go through the tough combat, build my unique character. I think it could be a pretty fun ride. Number 5 is a game coming to Kickstarter in February, the Runelords board game. This is based on a fantasy book series that I've never read, but from what I can gather, there are these individuals who have these amazing powers to summon monsters and minions and magical forces. But the actual game is a cooperative, competitive, or solo sort of miniatures tactical combat game. You have one main hero, and you get to keep on summoning these minions from a deck of cards that are unique to your faction, and then throwing them against each other. You get items, you get power-ups, you have these extra cards you can play for events and boosts, and like spell abilities. I only got to play the competitive mode with Peter, but overall we liked a lot of what we saw. One of my favorite things is that in combat you roll a d20 to hit, but only a 1 misses. Everything else is just a graduating level of cool effects. So you do like your basic damage, but if you roll a bit higher, maybe you push them. If you roll even higher, maybe you put a status effect on them. That worked really well. The initiative was cool. I liked the card play and using these events to help your characters. And the Runelords board game also has cooperative and solo play. We can get to try either of those out, but in co-op, 2 of you go on an adventure and fight some kind of faction or boss in a scenario with special objectives and terrain pieces and objects you can interact with. But the solo mode, at least for me, seems like the coolest part of this. You have these chapters for each of the 4 characters, and you make choices which actually constructs your unit deck for you. So at first it might just be like you and a dog backing you up, but by the end you've built your own unique army to take on these huge foes. So I'm definitely excited about the Runelords board game. I want to see more of it. My only potential concern is that I feel like they might be trying to add too many mechanics on. Like they have inventory, and they have all these different conditions, and they have so many different units, and lots of iconography and things to look at. I think it still might be great, but I do need to check it out more before I can make a full assessment. But I saved the best for last. Number 6, my absolute game of the con without question. This one's coming from Van Ryder Games in, I think, Q2 or Q3 to Kickstarter next year. That's Final Girl. So the core system of Final Girl comes from Hostage Negotiator, another Van Ryder game, and the basic idea is you're playing these cards to perform actions, but you roll dice to see how well or poorly you do those actions, and if you play fewer cards, you build up these points that let you buy more advanced cards, but those are single use and then you have to buy them again. And whatever cards you play go out of availability for an entire turn, so you gotta kinda like figure out what you wanna do. But this is a huge spin on the Hostage Negotiator format because you're actually fighting on a map, and the theme is you are a final girl in a horror movie, a slasher basically, trying to survive Jason or some other horrific creature coming after you and trying to kill you and your friends. So you run around this little board, you try to distract the killer, you try to save people because each person that they defeat, they power up and become more dangerous. The tactical gameplay here is amazing. The choice of when to search, when to rest, when to fight, when to run away, who you can rescue, who you have to let die. But even better than that are all the amazing thematic touches that, especially for someone like me who's a big fan of horror movies, totally hits the mark. You have these crazy event cards that can make the teenagers do idiotic things. Like in our game, they would wander towards the killer whenever he got close to them. Oh my gosh. When you're defeated, when the killer is defeated, you have a chance to rise a final time and surprise the viewer with your last desperate charge. Now, I have to be honest, I played the game with Liz from Beyond Solitaire, and it was one of the most fun and goofy game experiences I've had in a while. We were playing with Evan Derrick, who's one of the designers, and we were just laughing and high-fiving and hooting and hollering, I'm sure bothering everyone else at the convention. So I certainly had amazing company for this playtest, and I can't pretend that doesn't come into my opinion some here, but man, this game is so good. The second this is on Kickstarter, I am all over it. So thanks for watching my little recap of a few of the games I played at the convention. Again, if you want to hear more detail on these and coverage of a bunch of other games we played, check out our podcast episode coming this Sunday. And I want to say as a final note, the best part of the convention, bar none, wasn't the games, but it was the people I got to see. I got to meet Jason Perez in person for the first time from Every Night is Game Night, Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, Jeremy Howard from Man vs. Meeple. I got to talk to incredibly passionate volunteers, designers, publishers. I did an interview with Foreteller, the company creating the narration for the Isofarian Guard and for Gloomhaven. Got to hear a sample of that. Oh, it blew my mind. I want to play all of Gloomhaven again just to hear the sound effects and the dialogue. But yeah, PAX Unplugged, an amazing experience because of amazing people. So thanks to everyone who was there for taking care of me my first convention. Thanks to all of you for watching and for supporting the channel. And we'll get to some great games in our next videos. Good gaming, everyone, and I'll see you at the next stop.